Hi there, welcome to episode 4 of This Is Lit, a podcast where we'll be discussing all things literature. My name is Emily, and joining me today is Prue Baker. Hello, Prue.
Hello, Emily.
And Sian Clark. Hi, Sian.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm good too, in case you
Okay. Last week we gave a bit of an overview of the Australian play The 7 Stages of Grieving by Wesley Enoch and Deborah Mailman. Today we're going to continue talking about that same text, but we're moving on to discussing some of the characters from the play. So, I don't know about you guys, but I found it to be quite an interesting text, as there's only really one character in the actual play, and the rest we only know about through what the woman says about them, which actually isn't that much. So, I think it'll be an interesting chat today.
I reckon.
Yeah. And with all that being said, Prue is going to kick things off by telling us about the character of the woman as well as some of her other family members.
All right, just to clarify, that's the woman's family members, not myself. Thanks
for that disclaimer.
That's okay. So the woman, she's the main character. She's the only character that we hear from. She's an Indigenous woman of Murri heritage, and she tells us, the audience, stories from her own experience, but also stories from other people, usually those close to her, like her father, her grandmother, or brother, but then also stories of other Indigenous people like Daniel Yock. So everything in the play is from her perspective, and she injects her feelings and emotions into all the stories and perspectives that she tells us. I'll just do a little brief run through of the grandmother as well. So another character that features in the play. So the grandmother is the woman's grandmother. The woman's describing her grandmother's funeral. So even at the beginning of the play, the grandmother is dead. But we get the impression from the woman that the grandmother she's an extremely important part of the community and really beloved as well. So important, I think, because of all the knowledge that she holds about their heritage and the tradition and the culture. But we also see that she's really loved because over 400 people come to her funeral. And the father as well. So it's a short scene. So we know that he is, I wrote 47. I'm just double checking that he is 47. No, 48. I don't know where I got that number from.
So he's not good enough.
No. Sorry, guys. So he's 48. But the woman, he's in and out of hospital, and the woman is, so he's still alive, but the woman is starting to grieve his death already. So he's, as I said, he's in and out of hospital, but we're not really told why or what's happening. But I think his character and the inclusion, in the play explores the short life expectancy of Indigenous people. And I did look it up. For Indigenous males around this time, so about 1995, their life expectancy was 57 years old.
Whoa.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's shocking.
So, yeah. Anyway, pass it over to you, Shannon.
Alrighty, so I had Auntie Grace, Auntie Grace, Daniel Yock, and the brother. So I'm actually going to start off with Auntie Grace because I found her to be a really interesting character. Auntie Grace is exactly like what you would expect. She is the Aboriginal woman's aunt who moved to England long ago after marrying an Englishman. Basically, during the play, it's described to the audience that she has not seen her family in years, and she is one of the only members of the woman's family whose photograph has ended up in this suitcase before her death. It's really interesting to note as well, so I did a little bit of extra research, and Auntie Grace actually appears in another play created by Wesley Enoch called Hot Iron Corrugated Sky. And it's really interesting because I did a little bit of reading about it, and I'm not sure, do you guys obviously remember when we did the creative part of our Year 12 unit, and we encouraged our students to do lots of filling in the gaps and narrative silences?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this kind of fills in a bit of a silence that Wesley and Mailman have created for Auntie Grace. So I just thought it was really interesting. So if you guys look that up, Hot Iron Corrugated Sky, you will actually find that Wesley Enoch, who wrote it, she appears as a character in that. So it's really, really interesting.
Sorry to butt in. Is this after or before the 7 Stages of Grieving?
This is before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. I found it really, really interesting that the fact that, like, I don't know, I feel like playwrights don't really create like narrative gaps for these characters that we don't really hear much about. So I just thought there would be a little bit of interesting information, an interesting tidbit. It was also really interesting as well because with Auntie Grace's story, the Aboriginal woman, describes that while Auntie Grace is still alive, she's actually dead to her family because she has betrayed them by moving away. And the Aboriginal woman, claims that, moving away is this pain that she feels almost every day. Moving along, we also had Daniel Yock. So it's really important to note as well, guys, that Daniel Yock was a real-life Aboriginal dancer who died in police custody in 1993 after being racially profiled and arrested by Brisbane police while out drinking with friends. It's really interesting to note as well, I had a little research. Some of the newspaper articles from the time, basically, like, there's this one that I've got in front of me, and it's saying, like, thousands to march in frustration over continuing deaths in custody. It's really important to note that Daniel Yock, his star was on, the Ascension. Is that the correct terminology? Is that the correct word? Ascent? I don't know. And it's really interesting because this death in the Aboriginal community was felt really, really, really badly. He was a very popular member of the Waka Waka Aboriginal dance troupe. He had obviously tons and tons of friends. And it's really interesting to note as well that he was going to go over to Germany to perform in there as well. And he died at the tender age of 18. So again, it's really, really sad when you just do like that little bit of extra research into these characters that are described in the show. And it was also really interesting as well because Yock's death, and the way that the Aboriginal woman kind of performs her monologue within the show, it shows like the white Australians' public indifference to it. Like they were pretty apathetic towards it, and yeah, they didn't. It's almost like they didn't really care the way that it was written in the show, which I think is obviously probably reflective of how the white Australians felt at that time. The last character I have as well is the woman's brother. So the woman's brother, like Prue said before, is much like the father. It's only mentioned really briefly. And he is at just 21, a young, healthy man. However, then he gets in trouble with, racist police officers. He resists arrest. In the play, it says, he fronts up to court. He doesn't have the money. He doesn't really have anything. And the woman basically uses her brother's story to illustrate how structurally racist systems create Indigenous, suffering among the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. And I also found like a really good quote about like the really problematic cycles that these characters all go through. And it says, no matter how clean we keep our clothes, no matter how tidy we keep our house, or how well we speak their language, how promptly we pay our bills, how hard we work, how often we pray, no matter how much we smile and nod, we are black and we are here, and that will never change. And I just thought that was really important to note as well, because I think throughout the entire play, I think all the characters, nothing that they could have done would have helped their situation at all, because it's very aptly said, we are black and we are here and that will never change, and so therefore racism will sadly always exist. So yeah, I felt that was it's a sad character insight there, but yeah.
Very insightful, guys.
Sorry.
Yeah, I really actually like that they used a real life example with that story of Daniel Yock. I think it makes it all the more powerful to be like, yep, no, this actually happened. We're not just, making up a story about it. It's real.
Super powerful. I really liked it.
It's interesting to know that he was, I guess he was well known. Yeah, and like whether, like how many stories like that go under the radar because they're not, you know, well known within their community or that sort of thing. So yeah,
it is
do you see what I
interesting.
mean?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. It's like his story reminds me, like, I know we were talking the other week about George Floyd. It also reminds me about the Breonna Taylor story as
Yes.
well.
Yep.
It actually, I feel like the Breonna Taylor story resonates more, sort of, there's more parallels with that, because there was less, well, now obviously people are protesting about it, but I feel like obviously at the time with what happened to Breonna Taylor, there was almost like, very little public, you know, outrage to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for
Totally.
sure.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so moving on to our 4 focus questions for the week, guys. Question number 1 from Prue is, do you think Enoch and Mailman intended for the audience to develop an emotional connection to the woman?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
I also had and
Hey?
done.
Yeah,
Finish the
and
question.
next question.
We all said yeah.
You see, I think that, like, kind of, but also not really. Like, I know, I feel really, I know, you're gonna all condemn me.
Yeah.
I don't know, I feel like as a character, like, I don't really feel like a personal connection to her because I know she's just trying to, like, represent, like, the whole of the Indigenous community and their issues, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like,
So you merely think that she is a spokesperson for the Aboriginal community and not a member of the Aboriginal community herself? Is that what you're suggesting?
no, like, I don't know. I should have just said yes. Should be on to question
You just
2.
said yes.
Like,
and
No, I
move
love
on.
it. Keep going.
like, yeah, I don't know how to explain it. Like, of course, I, like, feel a lot of sympathy for her, and, like, I feel really sorry for her for, like, you know, going through everything she's going through and having all that grief. But, like, yeah, as a character, I don't really have a connection to her as a character, I guess. Yeah, I don't know
I
how to
think
explain it.
no, I think I get what you're talking about, Em. Like,
Mm.
I think one obvious thing they did so that they don't personify her or like give her any like characterize her in any depth is like not give her a name.
Yeah.
So I think we tend to perhaps develop this emotional connection with what she's going through or her experiences and possibly not herself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you're
Yeah,
trying to say? Like,
I think you
so
summed that up well. Shan disagrees,
yeah.
but yeah.
I respectfully disagree. Okay. So the reason why I think Enoch and Mailman have decided, I think the audience does develop a like, I think they do intend the audience to develop an emotional connection to this woman, and the reason why, and I get what you're saying, Em, about like, oh, like, I don't know, when I read the play the first time and I was reading this Aboriginal woman's character, I was like, gee, she's blunt, like, God, and she's just, I don't know, and you're right, like, she isn't really personable, and she isn't really, you know, like, people who are personable typically, and like when audience members like, you know, characters and stuff like that, and when students like the characters that they're reading, these characters tend to be really funny and they have lots of really good one-liners and blah blah blah. But really, all the Aboriginal woman is doing is obviously describing and retelling all these horrible things that have happened to her. And then it wasn't until like maybe the third time that I read the play when I think at the end she just goes, I'm trying to find the page. And she's just saying, oh, what does she say? Sorry, guys. She says something about how she's numb and how she just feels nothing. And she's like, oh, I fear my heart has hardened, you know, during all of this. And I feel like as soon as she says that line, I feel like the audience and students and people are like, will read that and go, oh, that's the way that she's the way that she is because of everybody and how they have everybody's made her the way that she is. Does that make sense? All the terrible things that has happened, that's why she's this person. And then I feel like that kind of made me develop, you know, an emotional connection to this woman because I felt so empathetic towards her. And so, you know, I've obviously never felt like obviously she has, but I definitely felt empathy towards her because, you know, of all the terrible things that have happened to her. Of course, it's going to leave her like a shell of a human.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a different. I think it's a different thing of saying like, are we supposed to like her? I don't think they're even trying. That's not even. They're not even. They don't care about whether we like this woman or not. It's whether we feel empathy for her and what she has gone through. But then we feel. I don't think we're supposed to feel just for that one person. We're supposed to feel empathy. For and anger and all of this stuff and sadness for her family and her community and however wide that branches out.
Yeah, that's how I took it.
Yeah, I don't think we're supposed to like whether we like her or not or relate to her doesn't really matter, you know, like
you don't reckon? I don't know. I feel like it doesn't matter. I understand what you're saying. I feel like, but yeah, I don't know. I just think, yeah, I don't know. Words.
I don't know. I agree with what both of you are saying, and like it concerns me that I don't feel like more of like a connection to her because normally I would be like, yes, I feel really sorry for like most of the characters I see in movies and stuff, but yeah, for some reason, I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking. I don't know what I'm saying.
I love it. Have you guys?
On to question 2.
Wait. Yeah, we'll go into question 2. But have you guys realised like it's just me and Prue just arguing, and now Emily's like the go-between? Like, all right, I just agree with everybody. Let's all.
I don't argue with anyone.
I'm kidding.
I
Let's
love
move
both
on.
sides.
Guys, can we all just have fun?
Yeah.
I'll call it now. This is gonna be the last episode. We've all just
We've disbanded.
Yeah,
we're going to group counselling.
We're gonna all start our own podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. Yeah,
all right.
Sorry.
Moving on. So question number 2. This was Sean's question. What problematic cycles do the characters get stuck in during the play? Why do you think Enoch and Mailman decided to have the other characters demonstrate the other issues that affect Aboriginals?
This one's easy.
Well, I guess instantly the first cycle that came to mind was like the cycle that the brother gets caught in with how he like gets in trouble with the law, causes a lot of embarrassment for him. He ends up losing his job, or just I think it says he chucked it in or something. I don't remember the exact words.
I'll try to find it.
Yeah. Then he has financial difficulties. He can't keep his diary, so he can't get the doll. He develops a drinking problem, and the cycle like continues.
Oh yeah,
so that was
chucked in his job, couldn't get the doll, couldn't pay his fine, had to front court.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah.
No, thank you. So yeah, that's probably the real obvious one that came to mind straight away. Prue, did you have any others that?
All right, this one's a bit abstract, but I
love it.
The cycles of anger and grieving.
Ooh.
And how that can just go around, spiral around. The fact that we see, and we've talked about this, I think the grieving, all this like the list on the back of the play seems quite linear, quite like this is steps. But we know that it's all just mess or a circle.
Yeah, and that it's always like I think grief is something that like will always be with you as well. Like it's not something that just like okay, I'm over it now. I'm gonna be fine forever now. Like
I saw a really good image online a couple of days ago, or maybe a week ago, and it was like grief, like pictured in like 3 slides, and it was like the first slide was like this, obviously this human, and grief was like this huge, almost like big bag, the big bulging bag like that they're lifting up behind them, and then the next slide over was like it was like a slightly smaller bag, like not slightly smaller, like maybe half the size, and they were holding it and they weren't like straining under the weight of it. And then the last slide or the last picture or whatever image was like grief was like a necklace around their neck, and it was quite small and easy to carry around. Does that make sense? So I thought that was a really interesting like piece of imagery to do with grief. So yeah, no, sorry for interjecting, but yeah.
No, that's cool.
It was a really good description of something. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I think it was just like, I think I came up with that when it says like get stuck in. Feel like the characters really got stuck within their grief and their anger as well, and yeah, they didn't just Sean?
So some other like cycles that I found the characters were getting sort of stuck in was obviously the grandmother and her distrust of the government, and she was passing that distrust ever so rightly, I might add, onto the government, because obviously, as she knows, the government has she couldn't trust the government, or as she called it, the government, because they always did the wrong thing to the Aboriginals. So she was trying to passing on that problematic, distrust to the government, to her children and to her grandchildren and stuff like that, which I found that really interesting. Another cycle as well, another problematic cycle that I found that other characters demonstrated was obviously the cycle of like alcoholism, and also the cycle of poverty, and I just found it really interesting because a lot of the characters within the play suffer from multiple problematic cycles. Some represent all of them. So I don't know, I just found it really interesting, and I think Enoch and Mailman decided to have these other characters demonstrate these other issues that affect Aboriginals to show just how widespread and how devastating the effects of the poverty cycle, alcoholism, distrust of the government, how much that can affect these characters, and how their lives end up turning to be out like. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? Yeah, cool.
I think another one, there's that woman that like is just in that cycle of like searching for her family by going to funerals because she doesn't know her family, so like she hopes that maybe she knows them. Yeah, same.
Oh my god, I was so sad. I was like,
it's really awful.
Yeah. I didn't even
so
think
I guess
of
that fits into like the grief one, because I think there's that line where she's like, oh, if they're not, then I get to have a cry anyway.
Yep.
And then I guess that cycle of like trying to find where you belong as well, because of obviously the removal of children from their families and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and that's just so awful.
And I guess through her we kind of see her grieving, but it doesn't feel like she's ever gets any kind of closure. Or there's no end to her grief. Like she will just keep doing that.
Like she's sorry, looking at the back of my book now, it's got like the 5 stages of dying or grieving, etc. It seems like maybe that woman's just constantly stuck in the isolation phase, because like she can't seem to find anybody, and so I feel like she's stuck there. I don't know. Yeah, it's a sad play.
Yeah,
friends of mine who have like listened to the podcast, they're like, "Oh my god, Sian, this is so sad." I'm like, yes. It is. But I think it's important that we learn about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Looking at question 3, this is my question to you guys. Do you think the fact that we don't actually hear from any character other than the woman affects our ability to empathise with those that she is talking about?
I feel like this is similar to the first question.
Yeah, it is. Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay. I was just like, oh, this sounds like the other question. I don't know, Prue, you go. I feel like I keep taking over. Sorry.
I think like I guess I think it would have helped us empathise with the characters, and everything that she is talking about. Definitely, like I think it wouldn't have done any harm in that sense. But then again, like it wouldn't fit into that monodrama sort of structure of the play. So perhaps that's what they were going through if they were trying to reflect, traditional storytelling, where only one person is telling the story, and that's how we learn and how we gain knowledge about other things. One person tells a story, which, so reflecting that traditional aspect of Indigenous culture. I think, but like, if we wanted to build empathy, like if we want to build empathy towards things, we need like faces. Like if we see a face that's getting affected by an issue, I think it's a natural response to feel sorry
Yeah,
for
for
them.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like like we will feel stronger. Yeah. So, but I don't know, like, perhaps we aren't supposed to focus. Like, it comes back to that one character, like that character sort of thing. Perhaps we're not supposed to focus on that specific character,
Yeah.
but what they represent.
Yeah, so it's more about like the collective than the individual.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. Yeah.
Mm.
So we're not, if we were given faces, then we would associate that issue or that experience with that particular face
Yeah.
rather than, a collective experience.
Yeah. I suppose
Yeah.
sorry to interject here, but maybe this is a good point for why it's not always good to study a play in English without seeing it
Oh,
performed.
ooh,
Because here we go. No, I'm agreeing.
I know,
Because
just stop.
in the note it down.
This is getting
in
recorded, Chan,
yeah.
just so you know.
In the play, obviously, if we have a look, scene 5, I think it says photograph story. Projected are images of an open suitcase filled with family photographs, old and new. The progression of slides brings us closer to the details of the photographs. And then obviously in our plays, these pictures have been printed for us so we can see them. And I think that helps us sort of empathize with those characters that we're taught that the woman is talking about, because it does put a face to the name. However, I agree. I think obviously it would be more powerful to have another actor or actress on stage, perhaps acting these specific parts out and stuff like that. But I think kind of with that whole monodrama, like trying to have that one woman show, I think it's Enoch and Mailman trying to get us to empathize with these characters and have this one woman show, and then obviously put the face to the name or whatever. But I think this is the part where it affects the students' ability to effectively study a play, because like you said last week, it is just one woman on stage, and like we haven't seen it yet. Does that make sense what I'm saying whatsoever?
Yeah, for sure.
Great.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have to agree with Prue on not yesterday's, last week's little chat. I think obviously it does affect it. I haven't held any grudges at all. But yeah, I think maybe like the photograph story and projecting these images up in the performance area attempts to put that face to those names. But yeah, I think obviously having an actor or actress be those characters would be more powerful. Does that make sense? Yeah.
We're all in agreement on that one, I think. So that's
oh my
a
god.
nice
Maybe
change.
we won't be going our separate ways.
Maybe not. We'll see. We'll see how the next 10 or so
We've
minutes
got
plays
one,
out.
Yeah,
true.
True.
All right. So last question. All right. So do you think the gender of the main character, being the woman, was a deliberate choice? Would it change things if her character was a man?
I love this question.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. I really had to think about it, and I'm scared
me
of
too.
my answer.
Go, you go.
So, I don't know, for me at least, I think that it might have been deliberate, like similar to what we spoke about in The Longest Memory. It might have been deliberate to have her character as a woman so that they could give like another group that's been marginalised throughout history a voice. So, so I agreed that, probably is deliberate. But then for the second half about would it change things if a character was a male, for me, I don't think it actually would have made a difference, which kind of loops back to like what I was saying in the first question, that like because we're not really meant to develop that much of a connection to her character per se, like it's more about the story she's telling about the Aboriginal experience. That like if it was a man telling the stories instead of a woman, I don't think it really would have changed like either my view of the play or like the meaning that I got out of it. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
I had basically that as well. The fact that women are usually the oppressed in stories. So I kind of liked, and this question kind of made me think that. But I kind of like that in this play, it's her and it's a woman that's been given the voice. So I think if that was a deliberate choice for that reason, that's kind of nice. And I think also, I don't know, you can disagree with this and that's fine. But like, she seems like a very like observant person, or like an observer. Sorry, my voice is going. And perhaps that's like more stereotypically, traditionally a role for women. So she takes in what's happening around her, and she observes the many injustices that have happened to her, her family, and to the wider community. And she's able to tell that. But I don't know whether. Yeah, I don't know. That was just another thought that I had. Could be wrong. And I also thought perhaps maybe when they were writing it, they just made it for Deborah Mailman.
Yeah, so that was my point. Yeah. So obviously, sorry to interject, but obviously Wesley Enoch was the director, and he also co-authored it. And then obviously you have Deborah Mailman, who was the co-author and the actress. So I'll start again. The 7 Stages of Grieving basically was a workshop performance originally with a 25-minute version showing like certain scenes. Obviously, this is a 60-minute performance. And Enoch and Deborah Mailman workshopped this for years and years and years before. Obviously, now it became, the 1-hour play that we know of, 7 Stages of Grieving. And I believe personally, like, I think they did it. They workshopped it. They wrote and rewrote. They edited. They wrote whole new sections. And then obviously this got picked up by a theatre company to obviously perform. But it's really interesting because I think it was very deliberately done for a woman. I reckon when Wesley Enoch and Deborah Mailman were workshopping this, I think they very deliberately made that whole creative choice that, yes, it will be a woman that will deliver this, because Deborah Mailman, obviously she's a brilliant actress, but maybe if they felt that the story would be told better by a man, or, would have different meaning and stuff like that, that she actually commented and said, like, she would stand aside. But Enoch and Mailman were in agreement that it would be more powerful to deliver it from like a woman's point of view and a woman's perspective, to get like another feeling of oppression to be discussed. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very, very informative answer. Thank you.
Yeah, wow.
No worries. Yeah, well, I
can't argue with that one.
No,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I
don't know.
No, it was good.
Yeah.
No. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it. All right, cool.
All right. Moving on to our final segment of the day, guys. We have a little game for you, which is called Actually. And it is going to be hosted by Sian Clark. So take it away, Sian.
I love the way that you introduce me. It's just so good. Listeners have commented and said, wow, she really must hate you. I'm like, yeah, she probably does. All right, so this game is called Actually. Basically, I will say a statement and you guys have to be like, no, that's wrong, and then correct me. Everything that I say, think about what I've said, and then, just basically have to correct me. And as, fellow teachers, you love correcting people, so especially me. So you should be fine with this game.
Oh,
true.
Yeah. Rude. So I'm going to say a statement. Something's going to be wrong, and then obviously you have to correct me. I will only be saying one sort of wrong thing in the paragraph. There won't be more than one wrong thing. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, you guys ready?
Ready.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Question 1. The play 7 Stages of Grieving is divided into 21 scenes. Each scene can be seen to relate to either the 7 phases of Aboriginal history or the 5 stages of dying. The 7 phases of Aboriginal history are dreaming, invasion, genocide, protection, assimilation, self-determination, and reconciliation. The 5 stages of dying are denial and isolation, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And you guys have to buzz in with your names.
Prue.
Prue, yes.
Actually, Sian, the play is 24 scenes.
Ooh.
Not 21.
Oh, that is correct.
And can I also buzz in and say,
Yes.
actually, the title of the
God.
play is The 7 Stages of Grieving. And did you and hang on, did you say that that's the 5 stages of dying?
Yes.
Isn't it the 5 stages of grief? Oh, no,
No,
sorry.
it says 5 stages of dying on the book, guys.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm just very
It's a
unobservant.
misleading title because
Yeah.
Alrighty, I'm gonna go
Yep,
now.
alright.
Okay, so alright. I'm gonna award Prue 1 point. Emily, you get half a point.
Oh, half marks. Fair. Alright.
Okay, question 2. You guys ready?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. Question 2. The play also deals with a character named Auntie Grace. Auntie Grace is the woman's aunt. Auntie Grace, who moved to England long ago after marrying an Englishman, has not seen her family in years. The Aboriginal woman pulls her photo out of a grave and describes the absence left by her aunt is still felt by that day.
Prue.
Yes?
Actually, I'm not sure if she pulls a photo out of a grave.
Yes. What does she pull a photo out of? Where does she... Come on, guys. So technically...
Emily,
can I take
you
over,
do-
Emily?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Emily,
Yeah.
you can buzz
Oh,
in and
good.
steal it.
All right, cool. She pulls it out of the suitcase.
Boom! Emily, 1
Yeah.
point to you! Yeah.
Too slow, Prue.
Too slow. Yeah.
Bloody hell.
So,
All right.
yeah, if you don't get quick enough, then I have to, you can have that point stolen.
Okay. I wasn't aware that I had to have the right. Anyway, it doesn't matter. You
Okay,
keep
tell
going.
somebody who cares.
Bloody hell.
All right, you guys ready?
Yep.
Question
No.
3. Shut up, Prue. Question 3. In scene 14, the woman recounts her experiences at an Aboriginal protest march in Mulgrave Park in Brisbane. Mulgrave Park has its own Aboriginal tent embassy and has been the site of several protest marches over Indigenous sovereignty. In this instance, the woman recalls how, as a family, they had silently marched out, but the media had reported in this instance as being defiant and traffic stopping.
Prue.
Yes.
Actually, I think you'll find that's scene 13. And the march that you're referring to is, oh my god, just hate this. 15.
Yes. That is not the answer that I was looking for.
No, scene.
Scene 15, isn't it?
Yes, no,
No,
that is correct,
yeah.
but that's,
Scene 15,
that's
yeah.
not the answer, so that's not the answer I'm looking for.
Oh, Emily, I'll take over. Is
Yeah.
it that there was no
What do you mean?
Aboriginal...
I had that right.
Yeah,
Don't
but
interrupt.
that's not my mistake. That's not my mistake. Emily, go, steal the point.
Whose mistake is it?
I don't actually know if I'm right here, but is it that there's no Aboriginal tent embassy in Mulgrave Park?
Bow, bow, try again.
Oh,
You're wrong, Emily,
What?
but
Oh, okay.
Prue,
I don't know then.
the scene number
was-
was not what I was looking for. Try again.
Oh, well.
Oh, is
I'll
Mulgrave Park in Sydney
No,
instead of Brisbane? No.
you're
no,
so
it's definitely
close.
Brisbane.
You're
Uh,
so close.
Oh, I don't know. I'm buzzing out on this one. I've already
Oh.
gotten 2 things wrong. I'm giving up.
Think about the
it was
name.
Musgrave.
Think about the name, guys.
It's Musgrave Park.
Thank you, but you
actually,
didn't
it's
buzz in,
Musgrave
so you
Park.
need to buzz in.
Prue.
Yes.
And it's Musgrave Park.
Very
Actually,
good,
it's
Prue.
Musgrave Park.
There you go.
Prue
Oh
deserves
my
double
god,
points.
I'm sweating.
All right, that's my game. Prue, you win.
Yeah. Good job, Prue.
Thank you.
Yeah, well done.
Everyone.
Well done. I'm really sorry. I prefaced that with there's only one mistake. Proceeds to make multiple mistakes.
You shouldn't have said that because then you would have gotten away with it too. You'd have been like, yes, this is all deliberate.
I know,
Yep, there's
and
meant
now
to
this is
be.
all recorded, and now everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, look at Shan being an idiot." God.
Probably.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's all for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Next week, we'll be continuing to talk about the 7 stages of grieving, and we're going to be chatting about themes. So, hope to see you all again next week. Thanks again. Bye.
Bye. See you. Bye.